Children, it's Pastor Matthew here for our Children's Praise video this week as we work through the Westminster Catechism. We're making some good headway now. We're actually up to question 13 out of 107 questions. Can you imagine someday you'll be able to say that you have learned all 107 catechism questions? Well, today you'll make one more step in that direction as we look at question number 13, which deals with the problem of all problems. Why is the world broken? Why is the world messy? How come we have a difficult and hard life? I know that you have experienced hardship in your life or bad, sad times that make you cry. Well, it actually continues through the rest of your life. Your life is going to have these bad times. But here today, we're going to learn why. And also, when we answer the question why, then we can know some hope on the future and how to get through the bad times in our life. So here's our question today. In question number 13 of the Catechism, it says, did our first parents remain as they were created? I'll read that one more time. Did our first parents remain as they were created? Adam and Eve were our first parents. You know about the story of Adam and Eve at the very, very beginning of the Bible. Now, the question we're asking is, they, Adam and Eve, did they stay the way God made them? And we know the answer is no. But here's the answer in detail. It says, left to the freedom of their own wills, our first parents sinned against God and fell from their original condition. Now, those are some big words, but that's the reason we do these videos, so that they start to make sense to you. So, did our first parents remain as they were created? The answer is, left to the freedom of their own wills, our first parents sinned against God and fell from their original condition. So, the answer is no, Adam and Eve did not stay the same because they sinned against God, how God created them in this world and everything He made good for them and everything He made for them to do and to not do. And we spoke about what they weren't supposed to do. Does anyone remember what they weren't supposed to do? Can you tell your teacher that if they were to ask? We know they weren't supposed to eat of one particular tree, which was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They weren't supposed to eat of that tree, but they did. And that's what we call sin, doing something contrary to what is God's law. And we'll look at sin actually next time. But when they sinned, something happened. They changed. And the word is, we're told that they fell from their original condition. Now, original condition, let's just forget about that word and just say a very high place. So some place that's high and special and pretty, that's a very high place. That's where God made us. He made us up here in the high place. But when we sinned, we fell. And when we know what falling is like, falling is when you're up high and you come down really low. Maybe you're walking and you trip over something and you fall. Or even worse, when you're maybe playing at the playground or you're on the jungle gym or the monkey bars and you're up real high and you fall. Well, we have at our playgrounds a lot of soft ground underneath, because when you fall, it might not hurt as bad. But the situation with Adam and Eve is when they fell, it really, really hurt because they sinned against God. It wasn't just a mistake. See, when you and I go to the play outside or trip over something, we can make a mistake and fall. But let me read to you again what it says. Left to the freedom of their own wills, the first parents sinned against God and fell from their original place, from their high place. So it was their will. You know what a will is because you have a will. You have things you desire and things you want to do. So you know what it's like to will something. Maybe you want to eat pizza for dinner, but instead you're going to have broccoli. Then you say, I really, really, really want pizza. But your mom and dad say, no, we're going to eat broccoli today. And that is not what you want. It's not your will. Well, that's the actual problem, we're told, is how Adam and Eve fell. So here's an image I want you to see. It's going to be the first image you're going to see is a story of Humpty Dumpty. You might have heard of this story before. Chances are you have. But Humpty Dumpty is a very, very big, fragile egg, and he's sitting on a wall. And here's the story you'll see of how it goes with Humpty Dumpty. The phrase is Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men cannot put Humpty Dumpty together again. So, have you ever dropped an egg in which it fell from a really high place? Maybe you were helping to cook in the kitchen and it fell on the ground. The egg splattered everywhere. That is kind of an image of what we see in the Bible. Let me show you the Bible verse. So, in Genesis chapter 3, we're first going to look at a verse about the will, and then we're going to look at a verse about the fall. Here's the will. Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. We're told that Eve looked at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that she wasn't supposed to eat. But she looked at it, and this is what it says. So when the woman saw the tree, when she saw that it was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit and ate, and she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate, and both their eyes were open. So, why did she take the fruit? Because she saw it and she thought, her will said, it's good, it's a delight to my eyes, and it's also very desirous. Desirous. That means I will to have the fruit. That's where sin starts. It starts with the will, your desire. Now, that's what happened when they did that. It was sin because of their own will. And then we continue to read, because of that, what we just read in the Catechism here in Genesis 3, God speaking to Adam in Genesis 3, 18 and 19, we find the fall. This is how Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, you could say. God said to Adam, he said, thorns and thistles the ground will bring for you, and you shall eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. And it says this, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. I want you to remember that verse. You are dust, God says, and to dust you shall return. So we know that God made Adam out of the dust, and he lifted him up real high and breathed into his body the breath of life and made him really, really special. But because he fell from such a high place, he actually is returning back down to the ground. So he was made from the dust, and he's made real high, but then he fell in his sin, and he's brought back down low. So he was made from dust, and to dust you will return. That's a fall. You hear? Well, here's the two more images I want you to see. The one is this image of a little boy who's falling in the mud. And that's what happens when we sin. Sin, we call it the word pollution. Sin pollutes us. And so a more simple word for that is it just makes us dirty and messy. And it's like we have mud stained all through our fingers and our nails and on our clothes, and we smell and look bad. Right? So that's what sin does. It makes us dirty. But when you see this image of the boy, you're going to see that rock that he tripped over. That is different. See, he tripped by mistake. But see, we sinned on purpose. That's a big difference. It's not like we made a mistake and just fell into a big mud puddle. We jumped into the mud puddle because we wanted to. And that's what made us dirty. And it really, really, really is our fault. And so the last image I want you to see is this hand sticking out of the mud. That's where the gospel is. We're going to learn this as we continue, but we're going to know the reason we need Jesus is because we can't get out of the mud by ourselves. And so we have to hold up a sign that says help, because there's only one way to get out of the mud, is that we need the help of Jesus. We cannot do it ourselves. So I want you to learn these images, learn that Bible verse, from dust you were made, to dust you will return, and ask these kind of questions to your teacher to make sure it makes really good sense to you.